I moved to Cleveland, and I could see that down the end of my street was an area, it was a tidal flat. But anyway, I knew that the council, the Redland Council, this council was going to be filling it in. They'd already filled in a lot of the area to make a park. So I rang up the Wildlife Preservation Society in the city, and they said, well, as a matter of fact, out in the Redlands, there's a couple of guys who were thinking about starting up a branch at the Redlands. And they gave me the names, and so I contacted them and said, you know, we have to do something about saving this habitat for these waders that fly all the way from Siberia. And that's how I met these two guys, and so we all sat down and had a meeting and started chatting about it. And so there was 3 guys and myself, and we all started up the Bayside Wildlife Preservation Society. And then there was this lady came along by the name of Helen Murray, because she was concerned about all the koalas living around her area at Birkdale. And she thought that, you know, something has to be done to help these urban koalas, because they were there a long time before we ever were, anybody was. And they have their little roads and their little trails, the same as we've got our roads. Like the wallabies have a trail and the koalas have got a trail. And they go to certain trees and they know where these trees are. And if you put a house in the road of that, well, that distresses them a lot, and then they can get a disease because they're stressed. They will still try to go to that same tree. So they will climb over fences and everywhere to get to that same tree. And so the lady brought these concerns up at the wildlife meeting, and then she put an ad in the paper, and I answered the ad. And I said, Helen, is that you? She said, yeah, that's me. So I said, oh, well, come down and we'll have a talk about it. We'll have a cup of tea. So we're sitting there, her and I, with a cup of tea, and we said, I said, I'm fed up with people sitting around complaining about things. Let's have some action around here. So I thought, well, okay, let's call it the Koala Action Group. And Helen and I both decided that's a good idea. So we called it the Koala Action Group. And there were just the 2 of us sitting there. So then Helen said, well, what will we do? I thought, oh, well, what'll we do? So I thought maybe we could go and see the newspaper, and then we said we could say, well, how about we both put our phone number in the paper, and then everybody could ring us if they've seen a koala. And then we would know where they are. We weren't trying to count them. We just needed to know where the koalas were. And so for 2 weeks, the phone didn't stop ringing. For 2 whole weeks, both of our phones. And we had people 9 years to 90 years ringing up. And they would all tell us their concerns about the urban koalas. So then we had meetings in people's lounge rooms, and then they did tree planting along the creeks. And so we worked out, where could we plant trees? School grounds, parks, creeks, all areas like that could be planted. And they could have a trail to follow without having to go so much on the road, you know, and then they could stay, because, I mean, even if you take them away from there, they'll come back. That's their place, and that's all they know. It's like the birds who fly 5,000 miles. They've got that in their brain. They know where they're going. And it's the same with koalas and even wallabies. So that's how that all started, the Koala Action Group.